Oh, that Deek always roughing it in the wilderness. Check this place out. Not too shabby. I'm Derek Diedrichson for Tiny Yellow House in conjunction with Make Magazine. This time around, we head to the Catskills where we're putting together a prefabricated treehouse. Assuming all goes well, you'll see what happens. Once I get some coffee in me, of course. So here she is, way back yonder, a hump like a snow hill. Copyright infringement. Now it's a treehouse slash pole house we built called the Wolfe's Den, Wolfe being the last name of the person we built it for. And since we've been literally busting our butts the last few days putting this thing together, I would like to give you a tour very much so right now. So come with me. Your old Uncle Deekula. Kind of sounds creepy calling myself that, so we'll just stick with Deek. As for the origin of this project, a ways back I had a feature in the New York Times. Thank you, Joyce Wadler. And subsequently received a lot of emails, people asking me to build stuff for them, design stuff for them, and this is one of those projects. We had a lot of fun with this one because we were pretty much given free artistic reign, and it was one of the few projects that wasn't in like Indianapolis, no disrespect, Newark, or Chernobyl. So gladly we came out here to build this tree house, and as we went along, we've been adding a lot of stuff to it. Now the process began back at the Tiny Yellow House HQ, the headquarters, aka simply my yard. Now, rather than building the treehouse from scratch, I decided I opted to prefabricate as much as humanly possible. This way, in the end run, I saved myself a ton of time. Now, in terms of building the walls, it was actually pretty simple. I just framed out, in terms of slope, shape, height, and size, what I wanted each wall piece to be. I then strengthened them with a few more vertical members, framed in some of the windows, and later clad everything with tongue-and-groove cedar. The floors were actually one of the easier parts of the build. They're just two triangles that together make a 10-foot equilateral triangle. I built those in two pieces, brought them to the site, then later, pre-cutting all the flooring boards, I slapped those together, then added a couple coats of poly. I went out to site about a week ahead of time to do some prep work, and what I did out there the first time around was to build the kind of main supportive girder system for the treehouse, the two poles that hold it up aside from the tree, and to do all the cement work, just to get that out of the way. Most of the projects I do, it's just me. You know, I'm doing all the building, designing, hauling, constructing. On this one, I actually had the luxury of hiring a guy to help out, Steve Bulldoze, as we soon called him, Sparacco, just a total madman, a workhorse. A lot of stuff that would have been impossible for me to do by myself. I would have ended up in the hospital. He made possible through his help. We hauled a lot of these pieces, him and I, up to site. I mean, these things were heavy, heavier than they look. Then we threw up the walls and secured them in place with a ton of nails. Screws, nails, you never can have enough of either of those. Debating right now if we want to make the deck itsy weensy tiny teeny or pimp it out and expand it a little bit. I mean, it's definitely extra building on my part. If I do it this way, I got to put another pole in the ground too. But it's all part of the game. The deck was one of the things in this project that was an afterthought, which is one of the great parts of having so much creative freedom. We started initially scheming that we'd just have a staircase that went to the door, then it became a small landing, and ultimately it's like, yeah, what the heck, we're gonna build a deck. The roof was another thing we actually did on site. I had pre-cut a bunch of the purlins or supports, the horizontal supports for the roof, which plugged into different designated pre-established slots that were attached to the wall. So one by one, I would almost snap them in place as I climbed up the preceding purlin. And after doing that, I just slapped up some poly roofing with a bunch of hex head screws with neoprene washers and added some aluminum flashing later just to keep it watertight. A couple things we did here to pimp out the place. Pimp my treehouse. Trademark, could be a future show. But we've decked out the place with a bunch of stuff I either got at yard sales, had, or found at IKEA because it was affordable enough and kind of funky. Behind me, there's actually kind of flipped upside down. It's a window of sorts, a dome window in the floor. It's a little bowl I bought at IKEA called the Unstragen Skrogen Krok, which is IKEA speak for a little glass bowl that's affordable. I put it in the floor, and it's kind of this voyeuristic dome window from which you can look above, downward, on a bird feeder. So the birds kind of don't know you're there when they come flying in to get their grub, get their eat on. You can look down at them. unbeknownst to them, and check out Cardinals, Blue Jays, and so on. We built a little day bed out of some leftover tongue and groove, actually shiplap cedar I had, just a little place to lay down and read, take a nap perhaps. The windows, the doors, all recycled, as I like to do, curbside finds. All these shelves I pre-built, pre-stained, some scrap cedar I had left over. And, you know, anywhere I could when I pre-designed this, I left a lot of horizontal shelf space just to stuff books, you know, whatever you have, whatever you want to stuff in a tree house. As for the flooring, 10-inch wide planks, shiplap, pre-polyurethane back south of Boston. This way, when I came out here, I'd save more time so as to have more time for myself to enjoy some refreshments, sit back, be lazy, and do nothing. And I came here and pretty much in no time at all, just pieced the floor back together like reassembling a jigsaw puzzle. Elementary, my dear Watson. I added a plant. No, genius. No, it's an office water cooler jug window here. If you ever been to, like, you know, any of the big hardware stores, box stores, and look for round windows, octagonal windows, not cheap. Since I like to recycle where I can to save money and just to make a point, this office water cooler jug window makes a handy little circular window. And it's so easy to do. You just pretty much trace it, jigsaw out a hole, caulk that baby in, give it a plywood trim border if you want, pre-stain that, and bam. $0, one round window. Now the sheathing and the interior walls, one and the same. It's all tongue and groove cedar, which is long-lasting, rot-resistant, insect-resistant. It also helps to kind of brace and add some rigidity to the whole structure. The thing is, when you're building a tree fort, you really have to ride that fine line between keeping things lightweight and strong. So in a lot of cases, instead of framing, for instance, with 2x4s, you use 2x3s. Cedar, fairly strong. It's not like oak, but it's nice and lightweight. So there's a lot of decisions I had to make as I went along to keep things lightweight, but nice and sturdy and strong to make this treehouse safe. As for the old third leg here, we have a double girder that runs under the treehouse. It's part of the whole framing system that runs into a bracket here, galvanized steel. That is, this girder here is also bolted into this board here, which is nailed and bolted into the tree. This tree actually leans slightly away from the treehouse, which helps us because if this girder tries to drop downward, it just keeps wedging itself tighter and tighter against the tree, making us even safer in the end run. We had about 5 people in here before, and the floors weren't even dancing or shaking, so I think we're good to go. My favorite facet of the treehouse, given that I added so many windows and gave it a clear roof, is that at night when you're hanging out in the thing, it almost resembles this Close Encounters of the Third Kind spaceship when viewed from out in the woods. The whole thing just lights up and you have just beams of light coming from all different directions. It's pretty surreal, I guess. And that about wraps it up. I'm Derek Diedrichson for Tiny Yellow House TV in conjunction with Make Magazine, and we will see you next time. Thud.